Measuring roughly 16 feet high and nearly 50 feet long, Dream of a Sunday Afternoon in Alameda Park is an experience. Filled with more than 100 figures, you have to walk alongside it to see this monumental image, moving through the mural the way you would stroll through a park. The physical act mirrors what Mexican artist Diego Rivera asks us to do conceptually, which is to walk through 400 years of Mexico's history, from the Spanish conquest of 1521 to his own present moment in the mid-20th century. Painted between 1946 and 1947, this monumental fresco, or painting on wet plaster on a wall, was originally commissioned for the restaurant in the upscale Hotel del Prado in Mexico City. Imagine eating a fine meal while surrounded by this sweeping vision of Mexico's complicated past. We see moments of joy and leisure alongside scenes of violence and revolution. The contrast is central to the mural's meaning. The mural famously survived the 1985 earthquake that devastated much of Mexico City. While the Hotel del Prado was left unusable, Rivera's fresco was relocated to its current home just steps away from the real Alameda Central Park, the very place where this imagined gathering takes place. Rivera arranges the many figures in this mural as if they're out for a Sunday stroll in the Alameda, a park long associated with elites and leisure in Mexico City. Here, Rivera collapses time to allow figures over hundreds of years to occupy the same space and moment. Some individuals are well known, while others he included are anonymous or lesser known, a strategy by Rivera to help suggest that history isn't just about leaders and famous figures, but also the everyday people. He organizes them into three broad historical periods: the Spanish conquest and ensuing colonial period, the 19th century and the dictatorship under Porfirio Diaz, and the Mexican Revolution that began in 1910. The loose flow of time moves from left to right, though Rivera sprinkles in figures from different eras throughout the composition to disrupt a strict linear chronology. On the far left, the first figure we encounter face-to-face is Don José María Figil y Robles, a historian and former director of the Mexican National Library in the late 19th century. Rivera includes him here to invite us into this shared national history. Vigil raises his arm and gestures as if beckoning us to walk through the scene and look further. Nearby, figures from the colonial period include the Spanish conquistador Hernán Cortés and Friar Juan de Zumárraga, the first Catholic Archbishop of Mexico after the Spanish conquest in 1521, when there was a need to convert millions of people to Christianity. Zumárraga also established the Spanish Inquisition in Mexico to root out heresy, or what was considered contrary to accepted Christian doctrine. Flames rise nearby, recalling the Inquisition's burning of heretics that once took place in the area that later became the Alameda. Some figures wear sanbenitos, a specific type of coat or garment, and caperotes, pointed conical hats, both of which were used by the Inquisition to dress alleged heretics. Here, as heretics are burned or whipped, they are visual reminders of religious persecution and control. Rivera also includes Luis de Velasco, the viceroy or the second to the King of Spain, who founded Alameda Park in 1592. Rivera also paints the most famous individual from the colonial era, the author, nun, and intellectual Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz. She became a worldwide figure and a passionate defender of women's rights to education. Together, all of these individuals communicate the foundations of colonial power and influence, as well as those who spoke out against it. The violence and injustices of this early period are the starting point for what Rivera presents as a long historical struggle toward freedom, or rather, the dream of freedom. As we move toward the center, colonial figures blend into those of the 19th century, a period marked by independence from Spain and by instability and authoritarian rule. Rivera includes leaders such as Agustín de Iturbide, who helped secure Mexico's independence from Spain, and who was Mexico's first emperor, but who was also exiled, arrested, and executed. We also see Antonio López de Santa Anna, whose leadership was tied to military defeat and territorial loss after Mexico's defeat in the Mexican-American War of 1848. The United States had invaded Mexico, prompting the war's outbreak. After its end, Mexico lost more than 50% of its land to the United States. Towering above is Benito Juárez, a two-time president of Mexico and a symbol of liberal reform and resistance to foreign domination. Juárez helped restore the republic after the French invasion between 1861 and 1867 and the brief reign of Emperor Maximilian I, another figure Rivera includes to underscore the complex power dynamics of the 19th century. Juárez is larger than the other figures, emerging from the top of this grouping of people, as if Rivera were suggesting that the leader's vision for reform and a more just, free society was trying to rise above the chaos of the past. At the heart of the mural, Rivera depicts elegant men and women, the bourgeois elite, dressed in fine clothing and enjoying their leisurely promenade through the park. A large hot air balloon in the back helps anchor us in the 19th century, referring to the famous hot air balloonist Joaquín de Cantoya y Rico. This moment in time represents the late 19th century under the leadership of Porfirio Díaz, whose dictatorship, known as the Porfiriato, lasted more than 3 decades. Díaz, like Benito Juárez, is larger than the other figures and is placed above a group of people. He appears in military dress, a visual reminder perhaps that the so-called prosperity and stability he brought to Mexico were due to his use of force and repression. His wife and daughter walk beside him, while nearby we find an unusual grouping: José Martí, Frida Kahlo, and a childlike Diego Rivera himself. Martí was a Cuban writer and revolutionary who championed Cuba's independence from Spain. Rivera shows him here lifting his top hat as if in greeting. Just in front of Martí and Kahlo, Rivera's artist wife, Rivera depicts himself as a young boy, about 10 years old, with a frog and a snake tucked into his pocket. He holds hands with a tall skeleton wearing a feathered hat and a feathered serpent boa. This figure is an adaptation of the famous printed image known as La Catrina, originally created by the printmaker José Guadalupe Posada, whom Rivera also includes nearby in a black suit, cane in hand, and holding La Catrina's other hand. Posada's imagery and ideas influenced artists like Rivera, in part because Posada made biting social satires. He created La Catrina, for example, as a humorous critique of elites. Posada looks over at a woman in a yellow dress whose back is turned to us. She stands defiantly before the group, suggesting that she was not of the right social class or ethnic background to be allowed in the park. La Catrina and the young Diego anchor the mural. She is also possibly included here as a Mexican symbol tied to indigenous traditions. Her feathered serpent boa recalling Aztec or Mexica deities like Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, or the mother deity Coatlicue, symbolized by her snaky skirt. La Catrina's golden belt buckle also bears the Nahua symbol Olin, or movement. This section is where the mural most clearly alludes to a dream, as Rivera combines his personal memory and family history with Mexico's national history, mythology, and symbolism. Frida Kahlo's portrait in the mural is based on a well-known photograph by Nicholas Murray, with whom she worked to help craft her public image. She wears a rebozo, a shell necklace, black combs, and purple yarn in her hair. She holds a yin-yang symbol, often read as a sign of duality, such as male and female, life and death, past and present. Kahlo rests her other hand protectively on Rivera's shoulder. Rivera even includes his previous wife and daughters here too. Just beyond the elite promenade, time shifts again. Figures associated with the Mexican Revolution, which began in 1910, cluster near the center. Francisco Madero, who helped overthrow Porfirio Díaz, raises his hand like a president addressing the people. He was assassinated in 1913, a reminder of the revolution's chaos and violence. Nearby are armed workers, women carrying weapons, and zapatistas, or followers of Emiliano Zapata, whose rallying cry, Tierra y Libertad, or land and freedom, appears in the painting. Zapata himself was killed in 1919, reinforcing the mural's message that liberation often comes at great cost. One Zapatista on horseback rises above the others. The way that Rivera structures the mural, with some figures looming above others, suggests that he equated revolutionary figures with earlier leaders. This is likely his way of stating that even those without power can become powerful through resistance to oppression. Throughout the mural, vendors sell pinwheels, balloons, fruit, tortas, and candy. Children play. Trees frame the colorful scene. Balloons on one side echo paper flowers or pinwheels on the other, while the masses of figures rise and fall in gentle waves across the surface. Yet whatever joy is experienced in the scene is always tempered by violence. Flames appear again on the far right. Police raise batons against indigenous figures. The brutality of conquest and repression bookends the mural, reminding us that the dream of freedom emerges from and is often threatened by violence. Suffering prompts dreams of liberation, of freedom, of revolution. So why did Rivera choose to paint all of this on a wall? Well, his choice of the mural format is actually important. Murals can be monumental and public, making them more inherently democratic than, say, a painting on canvas kept in a private home. Murals were meant to be seen by more people. Rivera, along with other artists such as José Clemente Orozco and David Alfaro Siqueiros, known as Los Tres Grandes, believed that art should communicate social and political ideas directly to the people. Rivera's commitment to social and politically inflected art did sometimes come at a cost. When first displayed, this mural was vandalized by a protester. At one point, the mural was literally walled off for years because of an inscription held by the figure Ignacio Ramirez, a 19th century journalist and atheist, that reads, "God does not exist." Rivera, an atheist and Marxist, was sharply critical of the Catholic Church, not of Christian belief itself, but of institutional power and abuses, which are key themes throughout the mural. So why call this strange, crowded, unsettling scene a dream at all? This is not a comforting or overly pleasant fantasy. You've perhaps noticed the figures that appear to be asleep on benches throughout, reinforcing the idea that this entire scene unfolds within this odd dream. Here, in Rivera's vision, history refuses to stay in the past, bleeding into the present. Rivera's ambitious narrative brings together so many people from different walks of life, from elites and laborers, conquerors and revolutionaries, to artists and even skeletons. His approach to Mexico's past is to reveal it, warts and all. In Rivera's painted dream, pleasure and violence, hope and loss all coexist just as they do in real life.